is what's going to happen, and that's what's happened here. So we use test plots on what would work and what would not work to see, okay, what's our plan B going to be? Community involvement has been amazing in this project. Everybody wants to save Deadman Island. Anybody who's walked on it, anybody who understands how rare a unique gem this is, they all want to get involved, from the high schools to the colleges to Boy Scouts to Rotary clubs to the general public. They all want to help and get involved in the monitoring and the planting. And hopefully some of you guys can come out and help as well. Our Eagle Scout project gave me an opportunity to try out our Band-Aids. We've had a number of projects besides planting. There's been docks that are inside the marsh that Hurricane Ivan brought in. They removed some of those, cut them up, and created trails so people wouldn't walk on the newly planted grass, which for some reason they did. I didn't understand that. They also made some spat collecting apparatuses for me, so I would know exactly when the spat were coming through, what size they were, and if we were going to even get any spat, because these are oyster breakwaters. We need spat, baby oysters, to create a reef. We also put some erosion control mats as well, and we're going to be planting over some of these to stabilize this area. One of the main projects were the reed tents right here. They're made of reeds and bamboo, believe it or not, and this is jute mesh. It's all natural. Eventually it will biodegrade, but in the meantime, since the plants are dormant, they can't really help me when it comes to collecting sand, so we put the reed tents in. Now, this was over one weekend. The storm surges got as high as 1.5 feet and brought in all this sand, and you can see where it was only that Saturday. This was the Monday I came and took a picture. So it did its job. It did a great job. Our phase 1 design is our oyster breakwater that I was telling you about. Georgetown Technical School has assisted in welding these items. It's basically a large skeleton, and we put the bags of oyster shell in. And this is what we did last summer. This is the as-built design. They're triangular shape. In fact, we've got 5 of them out that look like this, but the rest of them pretty much look like that, because we didn't have enough funding to finish it. But I wanted to get something out there just to see what would happen. Our anchoring system, I put in 2 different anchoring systems. In Hawaii, putting underwater stations that we used what's called earth anchors, and those were fantastic over what was called the regular Danforth anchors that you see on a boat. So we've got earth anchors in every one of these units plus cables. The way this is designed is to only work during a storm or any kind of stress that they're going through. So what's going to happen, and I'll show you, well, I'll just show you what happened. So to test the sustainability in 2009, we had 2 storms. Not too bad, but enough to give me an idea of what these things could withstand. Claudette came in the day we were placing the breakwaters. Claudette came in from the northeast at 25 knots. Claudette raised my water level, or Claudette came in, let's see, 27, the gusts were at 27 knots, and the speed was about 25 knots. This is what it looked like the day we were placing these breakwaters. I'm thinking, great, I'm too late. All my trees are gone. There's nothing I can do. But what I didn't realize is it was a blessing, because Claudette brought the water level up about 1.5 feet for me, because the day we were bringing in the breakwaters, the barge, or the day before, the barge could not get over the sandbar. That day, the barge could come over the sandbar and get to our farthest end to place the breakwater at the farthest end of the footprint of where they were going to go.
Those are incredible structures. How big are they?
They're 3 foot high and 5 by 5 triangular.
How many did you have built?
I had 155 built.
Where'd all the oyster shells come from?
We had different restaurants and also companies that shuck shells.
Yeah, because they're waste to them. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have recycled shells and we had fossilized oyster shells. So we were going to do a comparison. That's the researcher in me. I want to compare everything, see what works and what doesn't.
Did you have to, on the fresh shells, did you have to treat them in any way to make sure there weren't any parasites or problems from other areas?
No, they have to basically be out in the sun for about 3 months to make sure. It's called sweet shells when you have something on the shell, and we had to make sure they were all dried out and there's no fungus.
So the UVs would cover.
Right, and we also washed them too. It's very important that you wash anything you put in the water. I've seen large operations where they're blasting oyster shell off of a barge and there's huge plumes on the water and you see fish just coming up because there's no oxygen, in this area. So the fish can't breathe and they're just coming up, they're dying or gasping for air. I mean, and there's tons of fish. So it's really, really important that you wash anything you put in the water and stress to other people too. Wash it. And this was our first breakwater that we put in. Lots of volunteers to help fill these shells. We had we got our permit August 1st, finalized from the Army Corps. Looking at the tide charts, I only had August 17th to put them in, the week of August 17th because of the tides, and I had to stop in September 1st because of the Gulf sturgeon migration. So I had this little window in 1 week to fill all these units, and luckily we had just a plethora of wonderful volunteers to come in and help fill these bags, and we deployed the day I predicted. Now what bothered me the most was I thought Claudette was going to start a spawning in the water, because anytime you have a type of stress within your water system, your oysters will spawn. They'll also spawn at a 10-degree temperature change, lower or higher. Well, after looking at the data, what I found is this is in July. This is about when this is when we had placed our structure. So it was 2 weeks before we placed our structure. See that spike right there? Now, I don't know if it really got 105 in the water, but the point is there was a 10 degrees temperature change. So there wasn't spat that was spawned by Claudette. There was already spat in the water. So if we didn't put these structures out, I wouldn't have been able to catch the spat. I would have had to wait till another year. But on this day, we had about a half an inch of oyster spat, which by that time they're oysters. So it worked out perfectly.
And they fix themselves on the shells.
Yeah, the spat come in, they settle on the shells, and then other spat come in and settle on top of those shells, and eventually they create this huge reef.
A living reef.
A living reef. They're called ecological engineers. Now, what I was curious is, okay, how healthy are these spat? Are these spat going to survive? So I have to look at temperature and I have to look at salinity. Well, looking at the salinity trend, you can't really see the years, but this is 2007, 2008, 2009. Well, the salinity on the past 2 years have been extremely high. In 2009, though, it was actually ideal because it's 10 to 25 parts per thousand is what they prefer, and that's what this has been. When you have high salinity like this, you have high predation from oyster grills. So my guess is most of the reefs didn't survive in East Bay due to oyster drills. They had a lot of predators. In 2009, we had a healthy set. So we had new growth within 2 weeks, and that's from my dairy farm experience. Put little cow tags on them, but they're all numbered for monitoring purposes. So I can tell somebody go out to number such and such and take a look at this, or we can see what kind of trends they have. It's just a quick identification.